Welcome to Behavior Grooves. I'm Kurt Nelson.
And I'm Tim Houlihan. Today, we're excited to talk with our guest, Olga Khazan, about her fascinating book, Me, But Better, because it chronicles her personal journey to try to intentionally change her personality.
Okay, now, Tim, that's a pretty big deal. Intentionally changing your personality is a big deal. And I had never really thought about it before reading Olga's book, and it's kind of freaky if you think about it.
Yeah.
Her book explores whether we can actually do it, to change the fundamental aspects of who we are. Now, she wasn't trying to change every aspect of her personality. She was just looking at certain things, like she wanted to increase her extroversion and her agreeableness, while at the same time decreasing her neuroticism.
Now, Kurt just teed up three important terms here that I want to call attention to: extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Now, these are three parts of what psychological researchers often refer to as the big five personality traits, or OCEAN, so it's easier to remember. The other two parts are conscientiousness and openness to experience. The big five, or OCEAN, is the most reliable personality measurement tool available today, as it's been rigorously researched and replicated hundreds of times. Using the big five as her guide, Olga designed experiments to test if personality change was even possible, and then she tried to make it happen.
Okay, now spoiler alert, it is possible.
Yes.
And she saw a measurable improvement, especially in the extroversion kind of layer of that personality test, right? And through activities like improv classes and sailing clubs, which we'll talk about, the journey was not easy for her, but the big takeaway is really important, that what we think we want isn't always what we need.
I'm hearing the Rolling Stones singing "You Can't Always Get What You Want" in the back of my head, just by the way.
Why would you think that, Tim? I don't know. But there you go. Yeah, what you can't always get. Despite that, right? Despite that feeling that she was a person who thrived on being more alone and having a lot of alone time, she discovered that connection with others was actually better for her.
Yeah, we also explored the nature versus nurture debate in personality development. Olga noted that about half of our personality comes from genetics, while the other half is influenced by the environment, including factors that we can modify. As we like to say, context matters.
Yes. And finally, Olga shared how she used Nathan Hudson's scientific methods to measure her personality changes, giving us a roadmap that you, our listeners, might be able to follow for your own growth journey if you so want. And Nathan is a leading researcher on this topic, and he's from Southern Methodist University in Dallas. So,
Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out. So whether you're looking to be more outgoing, less anxious, or just curious about the science of personality, this conversation offers both personal insights and research-backed strategies.
So we encourage you to sit back and relax with a generous pour of Tweak Your Personality drink and enjoy our conversation with Olga Khazan.
Olga Khazan, welcome to Behavioral Grooves.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
It's great to have you here. Thanks for taking time out of your busy life to join us in this endeavor. First, we have to ask most important question of the day: coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee? There's no hesitation there, huh?
Zero.
Give me the good stuff.
Is that a morning only? Is it all day long? How do you drink your coffee?
Honestly, so for a year and a half, I was on the limited coffee pregnancy and breastfeeding plan. And then as soon as that lifted, I have been drinking all the coffee I can in order to
Wow.
Making up for lost time.
Yeah.
High octane stuff. Like, do you really go all out for it?
I do just a huge thing of drip coffee in the morning. And then sometimes I'll do like a cold brew in the afternoon or whatever I need.
Yeah. New children are good reasons to stay awake.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There you go. All right. The next one gets maybe a little deep here, but we're going to go for it anyway. Would you rather relive the best day of your life or skip the worst?
Oh, wow. Skip the worst.
Skip the worst. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's a new one that we've added in. So there we go.
You're the first one, so we don't
It's a good
have a lot of
question.
data on that. Alrighty, okay. So this is actually kind of a simple one. Is your personality driven by your genetic code or the world that you grew up in? That should
It's
be super
driven by
easy.
both. Sorry. It's both.
Of course. That's good. We'll come back to that with greater detail here in our discussion.
Yeah, and I think this one you might have an opinion on as well. Is it possible to intentionally change your personality?
I believe that it is possible to intentionally change your personality.
I would hope so after reading your book. So yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that because we're talking with Olga about her new book, Me But Better, which is about your journey to see if you could change your personality and help others do the same. So maybe let's start with what got you interested in this idea?
Yeah. So personality change really encompasses so many things that I guess, to be frank, I didn't like about my life at the time. So it was during COVID when I started thinking about this, but I kind of, on top of the isolation that COVID caused for a lot of people, I also was just unusually isolated. I honestly, um, a lot of people were like, I'm really missing my friends during the pandemic, but I wasn't really missing my friends because I didn't really have that many friends. And I kind of, even once like restrictions lifted and all that, I wasn't really getting out much and I wasn't really talking to people much. I just kind of like, I moved to the suburbs right as the pandemic started, and I just kind of sat in my little suburban house and didn't talk to anyone. So it's pretty isolated. And I also just, this is a lifelong thing, but I kind of just found that I was kind of melting down over really small things. Like small things would happen and it would just overwhelm me. And I would kind of just kind of fall to pieces, basically, just have a really strong negative reaction to small things occurring.
Wow.
And as I researched personality and personality science, I kind of saw that the first one was related to introversion versus extroversion. And the second one was related to the personality trait of neuroticism, which is kind of like depression and anxiety. And in particular, like kind of having like a lot of negative thought patterns. And I wanted to break out of those thought patterns and kind of just have a happier and better life.
I think that's a really great observation of yourself, and then it's also a really great way to go, okay, I actually want to live a happier life, so in order to do that I'm going to have to make these changes. So you've talked you've identified a couple of key personality things. Could we talk a little bit? You relied on the big five to a large degree, and we might talk about alternatives to that, but can you just explain for our listeners what Ocean or the Big Five personality test and why that's kind of the gold standard?
Yeah. So these days, if you read a personality research paper, there's a good chance they use what's called the Big Five, as you mentioned, which basically purports, I would say, that there are 5 personality traits. And they can be remembered with the acronym OCEAN. So openness to experiences, which is like imaginativeness and creativity. Conscientiousness, which is sort of like organization and timeliness and dutifulness. Extroversion, which is getting out, socializing, talking to people, and being really active. Agreeableness, which is warmth and empathy and trust. And neuroticism, which is a bad thing, which is depression and anxiety.
Yeah. So like 4 are kind of measures of the good, and then this one is sort of like the harbinger of bad.
Yes. Yeah. So the flip side of neuroticism is emotional stability. But I guess they already had an E in Ocean, so they went with N. But it is confusing because the other ones are good.
Yeah. Well, it was in the original kind of work that they did on it that was actually there, so that they just couldn't actually change it after it was kind of established. But there's been work on that, trying to do that. So with that, let's think about, all right, so you've set out on this goal. Do we just jump to the end and we ask, how did the experiment go?
Spoiler alert.
Were you successful in modifying your personality, and particularly around those two attributes that you talked about?
Yeah. So in addition to those first two, I actually also added in that I wanted to change on agreeableness. I wanted to become more agreeable because I felt like it, on top of just like not talking to many people, when I did kind of get together with people, our conversations were kind of surfacey and not very deep. And I just kind of had trouble like connecting deeply with others. So I also worked on agreeableness, and it did work. I did go down on neuroticism, go up on extroversion a whole lot, and go up on agreeableness slightly. But you'll notice there are two other traits that I did not address. Yeah. I interviewed other people who have increased on openness and conscientiousness. I did not work on those because I am already very open and conscientious, and I was before the project started.
It's interesting. You cited Nathan Hudson out of the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, who's done a ton of work on this. And I know you referenced him throughout the book. How much did his research influence how you approach this for your own change?
Yeah, Nate is actually at SMU. Brent Roberts is at University of Illinois. But they do similar work. I just didn't want SMU to get mad.
No, that's okay. That's okay. My bad. Okay.
This is why we have editing.
Totally. Totally honest mistake. So Nate's work really did influence the book because he has done some of the kind of most foundational studies on personality change. He basically created this program where he asked study participants, do you want to change your personality? And if so, which traits? And then he gave them, tasks to do to actually shift those traits. So for extroversion, it would be going out and talking to people, and then at the end of the experiment, the people who did those tasks consistently did actually change their personalities. So I followed a similar kind of program or whatever you want to call it, except I added on to what Nate had assigned his participants. I did kind of my own thing. So I wouldn't say that I like mimicked his research exactly. But that was I interviewed him, and it was a big sort of guidepost in what I was doing.
You did a lot of experiments, to get through this on your own life. You mentioned you were high on openness. Have you also had, to some degree, some kind of a scientific, experimental kind of, disposition or mindset?
I think I'm very okay with kind of being a guinea pig or trying new things. I mean, I am very high on openness, and that's why so sometimes when I talk about this book, people are kind of like, oh, I don't want to change, or like, I'm an introvert and I just want to stay that way. I kind of never felt that way. I didn't really feel like that it was important to me to stay the way that I was. I kind of was okay with just trying something new. That's never been something that kind of is scary for me.
Can you tell us a little bit about the experiments that you did? How did you approach this then? What were some of the ways that you were doing? Let our listeners know.
Sure. So for extroversion, that was the easiest one. I just signed up for a ton of activities, like improv, sailing, meetups. I just went out a ton and did a bunch of stuff. For agreeableness, I volunteered. I took an anger management workshop, and I also I actually went to a workshop on having better conversations in London. And for neuroticism, it really all came down to meditating a lot. Just different kinds of meditation and different, like, learning about mindfulness in different ways. Actually, for openness, I did travel. I traveled, even though I didn't really need to increase on openness, but I just wanted to see like what I would get out of the experience of traveling, which is one of the kind of key recommendations for increasing openness. For conscientiousness, I did not really work at becoming more conscientious, but I did reduce the amount that I drank. I never had a problem with drinking, but I did have like a glass of wine every day, and I kind of cut that down by a lot. So that is something that conscientious people do. They they tend to drink less and just indulge less in various vices. So that's something that I did for that.
I think I just realized where I'm low on conscientiousness.
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's a tough one.
You remind me that actually the book in many ways reminded us of A.J. Jacobs, one of our favorite recurring guests. He's all about the experimental life. And what was the hardest experiment that you engaged in? What was the toughest one to tackle?
The toughest was meditation, because I am not a natural meditator. I have a really hard time sitting and not doing anything. I have this like allergy to wasting time. And it felt like a huge waste of time a lot of the time.
Wow.
And it was just really hard for me I was like, I don't get what we're supposed to be doing. Like, am I doing it right? I found the concept of following my breath really difficult. I found, just the whole process, like, tedious, not relaxing. I don't know.
Did you talk to Oliver Berkman?
So I have read his books, but I didn't interview him for this. But I did interview Dan Harris, who also is a reluctant meditator.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you still meditating then? Is this something that is continuing, or are you like moderately doing it, or is it just gone?
So I don't have time to meditate anymore because I have an 11-month-old. But I will say that some of the lessons from the meditation class that I took have stuck with me. And I try I more like lean on those learnings, I guess, to use the cheesy term, more so than I lean on like actual meditation. I will say that like a lot of spending time with a baby is very meditative, because you aren't allowed to watch TV and you aren't allowed to look at screens. So you're just like watching someone like observe, a piece of trash for like 10 minutes. And that is like very close to meditation to me.
I mean, that's one of the things I know. There's lots of work that says, meditation in life, and that is aspects of looking at that. And different people can get into what are meditative states and various different things, exercising, doing a variety of other things. It's that clearing of the mind and making it so that you do kind of empty it out. So I think that's fascinating. And again, finding those moments, I think, are probably really key, and understanding the concepts are probably more important. So
let's get back to this nature versus nurture question. You basically sort of demonstrated that the nurture part, what happens in the world, can have a significant impact on you. But at the same time, science would also say that nature, that your genetic code's pretty solid. What are your observations on it now on this nature versus nurture question after you've been through this?
Yeah. So basically the conclusion that I have is that it's both. So half of your personality, let's call it half, it's 40 to 60%. So whatever, 50 is in the middle there.
In the middle.
A half of your personality comes from your genes, and half of it comes from your environment. But that environment is sort of amorphous. It's sort of a mix of how you were raised, where you were raised, whether you're married or not, what kind of job you have, who your friends are, what kinds of things you do. So it is sort of up to you. Like you can massage, or you can affect some of those factors. But there is a part of your personality that is inherited, though importantly, that doesn't mean you're like exactly like your parents. If like people start to think like, oh, that's why I'm like turning into my mother. It's more like, if both of your parents are very, very extroverted, there's a good chance that you'll be rather extroverted, but that doesn't mean that you can't like sit down and focus and write a term paper. It just, you will have that kind of natural inclination.
So in the book, I think you explore the tension between accepting oneself, yourself, and then but striving for improvement. And with this hidden kind of conversation going on that I'm not good enough as I am, or maybe, you know, I can't get to the next. So how do you think people can navigate this, right? How can they balance without falling into either the complacency of, oh, I guess this is it, or the constant dissatisfaction of, I'm never going to get there?
Yeah. So actually, something that Nate Hudson told me is that one way to look at personality is as, or personality traits is as tools for helping you achieve what you want in life. So if you think about something like extroversion, yeah, it is a lot of fun to just go to parties all the time, but it also probably you meet people at those parties, they help you get jobs, or if you're like really great at public speaking, you might, be able to start your own business or be able to like become some sort of life coach or something like that. If you're really agreeable, people are probably really drawn to you. You have a great, social network. These are more than just sort of things about you. They're also ways of helping you through the world. And so so thinking about them as tools, I think was very helpful for me because it just means that it's something that you haven't learned yet. It's something that you are working on acquiring that's going to help you get closer to where you want to be. So when you go to improv for the first time, no one there has ever done improv before. No one there is like a natural improviser. But there's
Hopefully.
probably, except for the teacher. But there's something about improv that's going to like help us with life. Like we're all there for a reason. We're all like looking to it to like help us do something. So instead of saying like, oh, I suck because I've never done improv before, think about it as like, I'm great because I'm learning how to do improv. Like I'm gonna like learn improv and learn how to, incorporate this into my life. So I thought of it that way.
To what degree then, like did your, to kind of follow up on Kurt's question, to what degree did your natural or your born tendencies and personality traits help you get to where you are today?
I think, and on some level, they did help me. In particular, I think neuroticism. I think a little bit of neuroticism can be helpful. I don't think you want to live a life completely free of anxiety, in particular. No, I mean, and
it's weird to hear you say that, but it's true. It's true, right?
Like, if you look, there's like this concept called the Yerkes-Dodson law that basically suggests that at either extreme, people who are completely not anxious and people who are way too anxious, their performance suffers, but kind of in the middle ground there, maybe, your heart's pumping a little bit, you're a little bit nervous, you're double checking things, and that's maybe okay, as long as it's not paralyzing. So I do like for some of this stuff, like it's a personality change, but they're all on a spectrum and you don't want to necessarily be at the opposite extreme.
Yeah. What surprised you in your journey? What kind of things like kind of caught you off guard? Like, wow, I didn't expect that.
I was surprised by how much I liked improv. I willingly signed up for a second session of classes after I was done with the first, even though I wasn't working on anything related to improv and didn't really have to. I just really liked that, having that release, having those couple hours in the evening where, I was with other people, but we had a shared thing that we were doing, but it was also really fun and there was no right or wrong. I don't really like board games. I find them very stressful. And so I liked that it was a group activity that was sort of like a game, but there was no winners or losers. It was sort of just that's it. I don't know. I found that very freeing and fun. Yeah.
So is your recommendation that everybody should do improv?
It's
the foundation for change in your life?
I think it's the foundation for a few things. I think it's a foundation for being more outgoing and just being more comfortable being more outgoing, being more comfortable with spontaneity. I am someone who admittedly is a little bit of a control freak, and I kind of have to have a plan for how everything is going to go. And that's not possible in improv. So for me, it was good to just have reps in of things not going according to plan and it being fine. And I would say just also it's a good way to listen better. It's a good way to build your listening skills and your ability to just relate to what other people are saying or trying to do. Because some of it is like you kind of have to pick up on what someone is doing without them overtly saying it.
The implication, right, behind that.
Hey, this is Kurt, and we want to say thanks for listening to Behavioral Grooves. And we hope that you're enjoying this episode, but it feels a little bit one-sided. You're hearing from us, but we're not hearing from you.
This is Tim, and we have 2 suggestions to remedy that. The first is join our Facebook page and engage with us.
We want to talk with you. We want to hear your perspectives, and hopefully our Facebook page might be the place to have some of that interaction. So please come and join us.
The other recommendation we have for you is to leave us a quick rating. You know, the little 5-star thing at the bottom of your app? Or a short review. Just leave us a few words about what you like about Behavioral Grooves. We'd very much appreciate it.
Thanks, and we now return you to our regularly scheduled programming.
Building off of Tim's question, so he asked about what were some of the surprises in the journey. What were some of the things that were most concerning or maybe difficult within the journey?
Concerning or difficult. Well, like I said, meditation was very difficult. I felt like some of the stuff for agreeableness. So first of all, not a lot of people try to change their agreeableness. So most of the personality studies don't have like much to say about it, about becoming more agreeable. There was like that tweet a few years ago that was like, I don't know how to tell you that you should care about other people. And that's basically like the problem with agreeableness. Like, I don't know, like if you're not a good person, I don't know how to tell you that you should be.
How are you going to know that, right?
Yeah. And so like all the studies, like everyone's like, I want to be more conscientious. I want to be more extroverted, but no one picks agreeableness. So the research is like kind of weak. And also I found that some of the things that I did, like the anger management class in particular, like, I don't know, it was just kind of pat or like not very efficacious, I guess. So that was I was sort of like, I don't know if this is really making me into like a little love bug.
Well, and you mentioned that was the least change, right? From of that you looked at from beginning to end. Yeah. You can see that, right? I think there's probably, again, not enough research to kind of really point to really things that work, and yeah, it's a tough thing to probably get somebody to like something if you're not liking something. So yeah.
Behavioral science, there's so much about context and environment in our decision making and things like that. And you've lived in a bunch of different places. You moved to Florida while you're writing the book. You don't live there now, right? You're in Virginia.
Yeah.
How much does environment influence some of your behaviors and the way that you kind of think about stuff?
Environment actually influences your behavior a lot. This is not in the book, but I actually wrote a newsletter Substack post about this. And when they do research like different like breakdown personality traits by parts of the country, there actually are pretty surprising differences. Like people on the like East Coast tend to be more neurotic. People in like Hawaii tend to be more open. If you think about it, openness is strongly correlated with political liberalism. So you'll tend to find more openness in like cities. It's and places where the weather is nicer tend to have less neuroticism. Sorry to everyone who's like in Seattle or whatever. I don't know. It can influence, like your like where you are can influence you. It influences me for sure because I have seasonal affective disorder. But even for people who don't have it that severe, it can be a factor.
There's this also sort of a story that says that once you're born with a particular personality, it's hard to change, but then you've demonstrated, and we've got research that says it's possible to change. But is there a point where it gets kind of fixed? It's like it's going to be harder to change as the older that you get?
Yeah, so it's not necessarily like harder and harder to change the older that you get. In fact, there's like some changes that occur in like very old age. And then most people do tend to change just kind of naturally as they get older. They become less neurotic and more conscientious and slightly more agreeable. But I will say the time of like most change for everyone, that everyone becomes like pretty different, is young adulthood. So around like I would say 20 to 25, or like maybe like 18 to 25. If you think about it, like that's a time when like you move away from home often, like you go to college, you start your first job, you maybe enter your first serious relationship. All of those things are like exerting a lot of influence on your personality, and a lot of people find themselves changing at that time.
Is there an aspect of this too that if we think of it as a kind of a homeostasis kind of set point, you're natural and you can move away from it, but the further away that you move. So if I'm a real strong introvert, I might be able to gain a little bit more extra, or maybe even a fair amount of extroversion, but I am never going to be able to get to that full like party every night extrovert aspect of that. Is there any aspect that you, from the research or from what you've experienced?
I haven't found that there's like a limit to like
Okay.
what you can achieve. But I mean, I think it stands to reason that most people, like if you're the world's biggest introvert, like you're not going to
You're not
become
going to
the
do
world's
one of these.
biggest
Yeah,
Yeah.
extrovert. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's like, it's just pretty unlikely. You might, but you'll probably you can get, whatever, 30 or 40% higher. Which can feel like a lot, honestly. Like a lot of this stuff can feel like a pretty big change, even if it seems rather marginal. Like I think Dan's book was called 10% Happier, which is like, and he was like working really hard to become
Yeah.
10% happier.
Yeah.
So a lot of this stuff, yeah, it can be just kind of smaller changes. And I will say that some researchers think that it is more like you, how do I put this? Like, it's more like free traits. Like you try on, you can learn how to try on different personality traits, or like kind of embody those traits for a limited period of time, and then kind of retreat back to your like natural personality in kind of moments of rest. So Brian Little's theory is a little bit different, and he thinks that like, let's say you're a like really introverted college professor, but you have to, teach lots of students in an engaging way. You can like switch into extroversion for those times, but like still inside you're an introvert. So whether that's like personality change or not is kind of up for debate.
So would that be an equivalent to like an actor taking on a part and a role in being acting in that way for that set time or that circumstance? Is that how that would another way of thinking about that?
Yeah, I don't know if he like describes it as acting. I guess it is a little bit like acting, except that like, I mean, I don't know. I think he would argue that that's still like authentically you. You're not like faking it or like being a faker or whatever. Like it's still part of you. It's still something that you're able to do. But it's sort of like, when I'm around my kid, I'm like very cuddly and sweet and like, trying to make him giggle and like making horsey noises, but I don't do that around my boss, but is like, as one of those like inauthentic, I mean, so
Yeah.
that's kind of the point of that, is that like you kind of change your personality a little bit to adjust for the situation.
Different domains. Yeah,
Exactly,
absolutely. We are talking with Olga Khazan about her book, Me, But Better. And I'm curious, when is enough? When do you get to enough? It's better, 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 better. But when do you say, I'm enough?
So I think it's totally a personal judgment call. But for me, it was sort of when I found that I was no longer enjoying the activities that I was doing in order to get to where I wanted to be. And they were also not having the desired effect. And there wasn't, like with improv, I like would dread it and feel really nervous. But then after the fact, I felt really happy and I felt like I was like gaining a lot from it. But there were some things that I did that I just didn't feel that way about. And so, yeah, I mean, I like make clear in the book that like you do have permission to quit. You don't have to stick with every activity you try, forever. Yeah, it's just a matter of whether that activity kind of fits with your values and with what you're trying to do.
How did you measure? How did you decide this is working or this isn't working?
I took tests on this site called personalityassessor.com, which is actually Nate Hudson's site. And it is scientific personality tests that he created. I mean, actually, he didn't create them, but he put them online. And lots and lots of people have taken them now. So you kind of have a sense of where you rank compared to all the other people who have taken his tests.
Yeah, cool. So you used a scientific method. You weren't just going, I feel better. I feel more agreeable today.
I did, yeah. But I mean, I will say that the personality tests that I took are like, do you like parties? Do you like, you know what I mean? Like it's not someone coming to your house and like looking inside your skull or something. It's like you are self-reporting what your personality is like.
Yeah. Okay. You had an analogy of life being like dancing through traffic.
Yeah.
We just loved that analogy, starting and stopping and surging forward, and then you're sitting, and then you're on the median for a while, and it just is a really rich and vivid metaphor. That the fact that life isn't continuous or even constant or smooth. Careers are not ladders to climb. Like, how is it that we sort of got off on all of these, misperceptions, I suppose, and what do you think we can do to sort of get back to this delightful idea that life is more like dancing through traffic and not just climbing the ladder or, get on the path and boom, you're just done.
Yeah, I think it can be really tempting to want to see continuous upward, like hockey stick movement in all domains of your life. I mean, I think everyone kind of naturally wants that. But I have found that most things are a little bit bumpier. You might plateau for a while. You might even backtrack for a while. But what I kind of liked about this is that you can always pick it back up again. Like it's not, you can feel like you went a few months and didn't really socialize and didn't meet up with anyone and, whatever, like you never left the house. And then that doesn't really say anything bad about you. Like you can just pick it back up again and text someone and say, hey, like, sorry, I've been out of touch. Let's get together. Like, I don't know. I like that it's allows for that kind of bumpiness. Yeah.
Because it's life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So at the end of this, what did you learn about yourself in writing this book and going through all these experiences? Anything beyond that you can change your personality? I mean, is there any other insights that you gained? Because we talked to a lot of authors, and oftentimes there's like, oh, I realized this about me based on what I did.
I think I realized that often when I am overwhelmed and feel like I don't have time for anything and I want more alone time, what I actually am seeking is connection with other people. I actually don't want more alone time. I actually want to connect with others. And the reason I feel bad is because I haven't connected with anyone for a while.
Wow.
And so I should actually fight that urge and go meet up with someone and do something fun and then see how I feel, because I think I have a tendency to kind of retreat into myself. And I found that that's actually not as restorative for me as I thought it was.
How did you come to that realization? Because I think that that initial response is one that many people have, and yet that your insight might be, more general than just for you yourself. How did you come about to realize that? Was it like pattern searching? Did you look and or was it just a gut feeling? Where'd it come from?
Yeah, I mean, it was just like so many times of like, going to sailing club or something where I live an hour away. I had to pay $30 for parking. I was like busy. I was like, oh God, I have to leave for sailing. I'm going to sit in traffic. Oh God, here I am in traffic. I hate this thing. Like, why did I sign up for this? I should have just done something closer. God, this stupid parking garage. Okay, here's $30. Okay, I got my stupid life jacket on. Like, get there. We're all on the boat. Okay, let's go. Like, on the water. And I'm like, people are cracking jokes. The wind is like a nice speed today. It feels really nice out. It's like 80 degrees. We're on this river that doesn't look that polluted from this angle. Like, it's like, I don't know. You kind of start to feel like, this is actually like pretty nice. Like, I don't know, I'm kind of glad I did this. Like, it helps break up the day a little in a way that like getting an hour more of work done maybe wouldn't have. And, enough things like that happened where I was like, maybe I actually just don't like being by myself as much as I thought I did.
Yeah, that's a great insight.
Here at Behavioral Groove's global headquarters, we like to think about helping people find their groove or staying in their groove, and kind of curious about what you think about that. What kind of advice would you have for people to
stay in their groove?
Yeah, or to even find their groove.
I would say to find your groove. Pay attention to like when you truly feel alive in the moment, like when you truly feel like, I don't know, flow is kind of like an overstated concept, but like if you truly feel zen, like things are not an effort, things are not a struggle, and you truly feel replenished and happy, but not just like, but maybe like a content form of happy. I would say that's probably your groove.
Yeah.
And you use the term moment, but could it be longer than a moment?
Yeah, it can be longer than a moment. But sometimes you only have the moment. I don't know. Like I was thinking about like with my kid, like, there'll be like a long period of throwing food and biting and hitting and kicking, and then like one like cute little smile, and I'm like, okay, that was all worth it.
Yeah, I mean, kids are like that. Golf is like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a lot of things are just all in the moments.
So it's that, getting mad and angry, and then one shot, it's like, this is why I play. And
exactly.
And I don't do that again for next, 10 holes. So
sailing, sunsets, all kinds of things. I am curious a little bit about music. You mentioned before we got on that you like music. Music, lots of research and literature on how music is a mood regulator. But first of all, do you think that music could have any impact on your personality?
Ooh, probably, but I do not know the research on that. Sorry, I can't speak scientifically, but I feel like, there's actually a part in the book where I like got in a fight with my meditation teacher because they said we couldn't listen to music during mindful walking, but I love listening to music while I'm walking. And for me, it really helps regulate my mood. It really just helps smooth everything out.
I love the idea of coming to blows with your Buddha,
I
teacher.
Know. Well, she would just let it happen, right? She would just like let me punch her because yeah.
Okay, so what's on your playlist when you go for a walk? What do you like to listen to?
Okay, I was like so worried that you were going to ask this because my playlist right now is not cool because I just like listened to stuff I had already known about for like years by the time my kid was born, and then I haven't like discovered new music. Since he came.
Okay. Tim hasn't learned any new music since 1978. So
72.
So like I'm trying to see like what. Okay, so what do I listen to? So I really like this band Polo and Pan. They've been around for a while. They're like a French EDM band. Oh. I have this band called The Last Dinner Party on my playlist. I have Chapel Roan, obviously, like everyone else.
Great.
Chapel Roan is relatively new. Come on.
Chapel Roan is pretty new, and I feel like that's my cool one.
That's you're like hanging out with the cool kids.
You earned street cred right there.
Yeah. I feel like that's like, I don't know. Oh, the Beths. The Beths is a good band. It's a rock band.
Yeah. Great band. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The best. Yeah.
Okay.
You'll have to send us your playlist. We'd love to share it. If
I will make a fake cool playlist that I will then share with you.
Oh, come on,
I like that.
Olga, come on. No. So let's imagine that you are on a desert island for a year, and let's just assume everybody's good. Your child and everything is safe and happy, but you've got a year where you get to listen to two musical artists' catalogs. Which two would you take with you?
Okay, I would take Odessa because their music doesn't have words, and I think that would get less annoying listening to on repeat. It doesn't have very many words.
Okay.
And oh wow, this is so hard.
Odessa.
Yeah. Oh well, it's like Des with a Z and an A.
Okay.
I don't know if it's pronounced Odessa. I don't know,
We'll
but
have to check that out. I'm not familiar with Odessa.
Sorry, I'm having trouble thinking of the other one. Let me look at my '90s country playlist.
It's always interesting because this question, either people have an answer right away, or it is the hardest question that we ask in the entire interview.
Maybe like George Strait, just because I feel like it's enough. I know all his songs, and they could just play, and they're like nice and relaxing.
Well,
as I try
you
to,
are from Texas, so
yeah, exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, they're upbeat too.
Yeah, they're upbeat. Like I could see gathering coconuts and like check yes or no. Yeah.
I mean, that kind of okay, very cool.
And you like Toes in the Sand. That's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Olga, thank you so much for being a guest on Behavioral Grooves today.
Absolutely. Yeah, this was super fun. Thanks for having me.
Welcome to our grooving session where Tim and I share ideas on what we learned from our discussion with Olga, have a free-flowing conversation, and groove on whatever else comes into our me but better brains.
That's a great place to start. It really is. I think
me
that's
but better.
Yeah. I mean, I've lived a lot of my life just trying to be better and kind of not paying enough attention to the me. Like I'm okay just as I am, right? There's me.
Are you Popeye? Me is what I is, and I am what I am.
A little, it's either Popeye or Yoda. I don't know, but
is
better,
what I is. Yeah,
better is something that we almost all strive for, right?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think we all strive to be better on a regular basis. Not everybody, but for most of us, I think that's a constant thing. I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, hopefully you're doing it in part because you want to learn and become a better person. And I think that's important. And so I think with that, Tim, the part that I think you're going for is we don't often spend enough on the me side of this. It's the better side, but the me side of this is also important.
Well said. Well said. And I'd like to start the discussion with just thinking about this idea of this paradox of solitude. There's a bunch of people who are listening that feel like they're more introverted. They might define themselves as introverts even, but we know from Sandra Motz that that's way more complex than just I am or I'm not, right? But if we just think about this craving that some of us might have for solitude, what we might need more of is connectivity. It's possible that our lives could actually be better if we had more connection and less solitude.
Yeah, and I think it was important because she talked about this, right? She talked about this idea that we feel overwhelmed, we feel fatigue. And for her, at least, she believed that meant she needed more alone time, that she needed to kind of hunker down,
right,
and just, get away from everything.
Mm-hmm.
And what she found was that she really needed to be with others more. She needed that connection. That was what helped overcome that fatigue or that feeling of overwhelm.
Well, this is the classic behavioral science insight, right? It flips the assumptions.
Yes.
Right? It says, no, like your gut says one thing, but maybe you shouldn't listen to your gut, right?
I never listen to my gut except for when it's talking about food. And then I go, okay.
My therapist
ice cream? Yes, I'll take ice cream. Of course I'll take ice cream. You want more ice cream? I want more ice cream. Sure, of course.
You listen to that voice.
I listen to that gut voice when it talks about ice cream and pizza and, whatever else good junk food there is in the house. So, yeah.
I remember
Oreos.
My therapist used to say, those voices in your head, don't listen to them.
But this is my gut, Tim. You said we don't listen except for when I'm hungry. And then
okay.
Yeah. So I think this is interesting. Sorry, we digress as we usually do. So why does this happen? Why do we have this false assumption that we need X when really we need why? Why do we feel like we need to be alone to recharge when in fact it might actually be better to be around people? Why do we feel like we should not talk to strangers in the line at Starbucks or on the bus when the research shows that yeah, we should actually do that? What are some of the psychological behavioral science pieces, Mr. Houlihan?
Well, I mean, there's a lot that we could unpack there. I mean, we can get into Nick Epley with, the talking to strangers thing and how we just don't feel like it's going to work out, and we just don't want to be that person that does something weird, regret, all those kinds of things. But I think the classic or the central part of it is affective forecasting, that we make errors in an affective, meaning our emotions or the feelings, right? So we make this error in misjudging how we're actually going to feel. And
Yes.
right, and this research came from Dan Gilbert and Tim Wilson about 20 years ago.
Yeah, and they talked about it specifically around not understanding what makes us happy. We assume
Yeah,
X makes us happy when in fact it may for a short time, but it doesn't lend to long-term happiness. In particular, they were doing a bunch of research on
yeah,
income and job promotions and a whole bunch of other things that we were doing. And this idea that we do not make accurate predictions about what will make us what we'll be feeling after certain events in the future. In other words,
right,
if X happens to me, I make an assumption about what X will do to how I feel, what my cognition is afterwards. And the
yeah.
fact of the matter is that guess is just a guess, and we're not really that good at it when we think we should be.
I love you and I have had this conversation many times, and you used to talk about going camping in the Boundary Waters, and it rained, and
Hmm.
when it was raining, it was like, this is the worst ever. It's so hard for me and for my wife and for the kids, and this is going to be terrible. But what were the actual feelings like years later?
Well, and it wasn't even years later. It was actually even, part of like
Yeah,
while we were there. Those are some of the best memories that we have from some of those, right? We
the
sat underneath the
rainstorm.
tarp. We read Harry Potter. I mean, it was one of the books of Harry Potter that we read out loud underneath this tarp, and we just yeah, it wasn't what we had expected. And if you
Yeah,
would have asked me in advance, going to the Boundary Waters and having it rain, how are you going to feel? I'm going to feel miserable, cold, wet. This is not good. But in reality, yeah, it was cold, it was wet, but we had fun. And I
right.
felt like, oh, this is cool. And afterwards, it was actually a point of pride.
Right. And in general, we're not that bad at predicting like which side of the neutral, steady on scope we're going to be on. Like we can generally anticipate this isn't going to be great or this is going to be pretty good. But we're also not very good at detecting sort of how much impact that's going to have, like where on the line it's going to hit us. And that's the problem that and you alluded to this earlier. We think that, oh, I'm not going to like this and it's going to be pretty crappy. And so, and yet, the further down the road you get, days, weeks, months, it's like, well, it wasn't that bad,
Yeah,
and
well,
things can be mitigated or they can be expanded. Like we can say, I think I might like this a little bit. And then a month later go, that was really a fun thing.
yeah. And we do this all the time. We do it in a multitude of different, arenas as well. And not just from, anticipating how I'm going to feel in a vacation setting or
Yeah.
whatever it is. There is this, if I have to have this conversation with somebody, I have to tell somebody some bad news. And I think how hard that's going to be for me. And actually, when you're doing it, yeah, as you said, it's on that negative side of the neutral, but there's some element of relief that comes with this that we don't often think about when we're
Yeah.
doing this. The reaction that people have isn't usually as negative as we anticipate it, or it could be. So there's lots of those experiences that we have that we misjudge to a
Right.
degree, right? And sometimes that's hugely misjudging how our emotions are going to be. It's
Right.
not just, oh, I thought I'd be a little sad and I was a big sad, or thought I'd be horribly sad and I was, mildly sad. No, I was barely sad at all. Right? There's a big side of that.
Exactly. So we've got this problem with forecasting our feelings. And then the second thing I think is that we underestimate the importance of our social connections as a mood regulator.
Oh,
right? I'm referring to the work that Roy Baumeister and Mark Leary did on belongingness, and how they really kind of helped us discover, this was like 30 years ago, really capitalize on this idea that we are socially connected beings. We need to be connected, whether it's friends, family, coworkers, religion, something else. We have to have sort of a group that we can be a part of. That's going to be an in-group, a group that is maybe bigger than just me, bigger than just my little thing, that I can be a part of and be connected to. And that belongingness has a tremendously powerful effect on our mood and how we feel. So I think that this is a really key part of something that we tend to misrepresent or misunderstand when it comes to our own feelings.
Yeah, you brought up Baumeister, but there's also like the Harvard longevity study, the adult longevity study that shows the one consistent in people living in their longevity, in how they rated their lives, was social connections. It wasn't how much income you had, that it could be super rich or super poor. That didn't matter. It didn't matter, other factors that they looked at. Social connections were the number one indicator of having lived a good life.
Right. And so if you're feeling like my social metabolism isn't really set up for this, I'm much better with isolation because I'm an introvert, blah, 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 me too, get on board. Consider Olga's sailing club test.
Yeah, that was fun.
Right. So like, she didn't really want to become, she didn't really love sailing. She didn't want to become a sailor. She didn't want to join a sailing club. But what happened? She enjoyed it. It ended up being a really positive experience in her life, and she got a lot out of it. So,
yeah, I think that's important. And I think in today's world too, I want to just emphasize this. We didn't really talk about this, but this idea of not just having social interactions online, it's in-person social connections.
Yeah.
There's something about those that is different. And I was talking about this. I had Rotary this morning, and Rotary, like most social club organizations around the world, have seen a significant decrease in membership over the past 10, 20 years, past 5 years in particular after COVID. Mm-hmm. There's been a huge, huge drop in people. It's the bowling alone scenario as opposed to joining a bowling league. It is a number of those things. And there's something innate about getting together with others for whatever reason it is, whether it's a sailing club, whether it's a bridge club, whether it's, a group of people that you go for a walk with around the lake, or a book club where you get together and talk about a book, not over this, electronic version of things, but doing something in person. I think that's really important.
It absolutely is. So if you have that sense of isolation, or just, if you're defining yourself as an introvert and you want to be pulling back, do the check the urge, use the check the urge rule, right? So if your urge is to isolate because you're feeling overwhelmed, just check that urge, check your gut. Those voices inside your head, don't listen to them.
Right. Unless your gut is telling you to eat ice cream, and then, you should go ahead and eat ice cream. But you're absolutely right. This idea that the initial response that we get isn't always the right response. We need to pause, reflect back on that, and sometimes override those voices in our brain, override that initial response that we have, and say, no, I don't necessarily want to do this, but I also know that in the long run, this is probably going to be good for me. There's this piece about just getting started with this too. It's this idea that you've heard me talk about this, it's the Newton's laws around motivation, right? As opposed to his laws of motion, it's around motivation. And objects at rest tend to stay at rest. Well, if I am an object and I'm sitting at my house watching television, I am more likely to stay sitting and watching television at my house. And sometimes I need a spark. I need something to move me out of that stasis, move me out of sitting. And once I'm in motion, I'm more likely to stay in motion. Once I'm going to the sailing club, I'm enjoy that sailing club. I'm going to like that sailing club.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, a really big piece.
Yeah. And if you've got a friend who is a good agitator, use them, have text a friend with hey, how about a quick level set and just get out of yourself for just a minute. I think there's one other thing though to think about that. And that is just sort of questioning the what you're actually feeling, because our feelings aren't always that accurate. They're pretty good general barometers, but they're not super accurate. And so what you might be feeling instead of actual loneliness could be fatigue. It could be fatigue in disguise. You're just worn out. You're just tired. And those are two very, very different things in reality, but they might feel the same way at the time. So if you're having that craving for, I just really need to pull back, just go, maybe I just need some rest.
Maybe you just need some ice cream. There you go. Let's wrap up with that.
Okay. Well, we've explored this fascinating insights from Olga about how we sometimes misinterpret our need for connection and as a desire for solitude. So the research really backs up her personal discoveries, and we're glad she wrote it down.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And the rigorous way that she approached it, I think, lends some credibility, at least in my mind, to what she found. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it sure does. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes it's important to question our instincts. When we feel like retreating, it might be worth asking if what we're really craving is meaningful connection rather than isolation.
Exactly. And I think Olga's journey kind of shows us that, hey, these are some insights about ourselves that don't always come as easy as we would like them to be. And it requires us to take a step outside of our comfort zones, to do some experimentation, to try some new things out, to get that, push, that spark, get us off of the couch, right?
Because what's the motivation? The Newton of behavioral science? An object that stays that is at rest stays at rest.
Yeah. An object that at rest stays at rest. An object in motion tends to stay in motion. So
Okay. So listeners, we encourage you to find your groove this week by testing your assumptions about what really replenishes you, what actually gives you that juice to keep going. The next time you feel like canceling plans, you just want to stay home, consider whether a dose of connectivity might actually be what you need.
And remember, finding your groove isn't about forcing yourself into a personality box labeled introvert or extrovert. It's about discovering what truly makes you feel alive and replenished in each moment.
And what you discover might surprise you, just like it surprised Olga. And we hope that you use those insights this week as you go out and find your groove.